Now, we know that FCA, Fiat Chrysler, General Motors, and Ford have all shut down their assembly plants,
right,
for a couple weeks. We also know, you and I know, because we have kind of inside access to this, that some of these supply chain manufacturers are shut down. So
that's right.
There are parts, regardless of where you are in the food chain, so to speak, in the hierarchy, in the order of importance, right? Like if you're at the top, if you're emergency services, you still may not have parts. There is going to probably be some parts shortages coming up.
Right.
And the big picture here in this podcast is you need to think about that in addition to the reasons to stay at home that include, your health and not getting exposed to this coronavirus. If your car breaks down, now you got no transportation, right? And so
that's right.
I guess you could Lyft or Uber or whatever. You're not going to keep your 6-foot social distance at that point, but
right.
You better be thinking about this and not driving that thing around on joyrides, that aren't absolutely necessary, because it is a factor.
That's right. It is a factor, man. No doubt about it. I will say something else too to this regard, is that people have what they call scheduled maintenance. Oil changes, tune-ups, etc., tire rotation and balance. If it's not a critical service to have done to your vehicle right now, say for instance, in most of your modern vehicles, and speaking of electronics, you'll have these indicators that let you know, hey, it's time to change your oil. Don't freak out, man, because while it's just a notification, it's the recommended intervals that pops up on your screen, or what's on your little tag up in the windshield that your service center put in there for you. I will assure you that in these non-critical things where it's not going to cause catastrophic failure, and not getting your oil changed today versus putting another 500 miles on it for the sake of keeping your social distance,
you're going to be all right.
You're going to be fine.
Now look,
folks.
Jay is not telling you, and we can roll this back if we need to, he is not telling you that you can drive that thing another 7,000 to 10,000 miles without an oil change and without touching it or checking your oil or anything like that. He is saying that if you miss your appointment by a week or two or 500 miles or so, it's not the end of the world. Your car's probably not going to break down.
Right.
You're fine.
Of course, unless you haven't been on top of it, and it was a 5,000 mile interval, and now you've got 8,000.
Now you're 15, right?
Now you're 15.
On you. Yeah.
Right. That's on you, and then maybe you should learn how to change your own oil.
So
I'm just going to say that.
So, yeah, not a bad life skill in these times, right?
No, not a bad life skill. Not at all.
So let's take a minute while we're in a break kind of mood here. I just want to thank everybody. We've picked up a lot of new subscribers recently. Some of that was my wife's doing.
Man.
So thank you, everybody, for subscribing on YouTube. If you don't know what we're talking about, you can go over to our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/parts counter gurus. I think I've finally gotten that right.
That's
okay.
That's right. That is exactly right. Yeah.
And just hit the subscribe button. That helps us a ton in what's going on right now. With everybody, with people losing work, with people displaced, we're in that situation just like everyone else. And getting those subscriptions tells YouTube to allow us to continue, because they have sort of tiers of things that we can do. They will put ads on our show, whether we allow them to or not. But if we have a certain number of subscribers, they will pay us for those ads. So it helps us out. So thank you, and thank you to everyone that has subscribed.
Right.
Up to and including this new round of folks. Wow,
I was so impressed. Thank you to your wife for that, man. It was I was blown away with the number of subs that we got. So like us and ring the bell.
We will
and
do our best to earn
guys.
your confidence. Tell a friend.
Please,
if you hate the show,
about to say that, please.
Go find somebody you don't like and tell them.
And
I used to say go to a coworker's computer, but I guess nowadays that's probably unsafe.
Probably not an idea. You definitely want to keep that social. Keep your mitts off of other people's stuff.
So,
man.
Okay, so I digress. So I am now in a situation with my RV where we had to leave it and just drove 12 hours through the night, got home at like 3 a.m. And in addition to, and I'm gonna set you up to talk a little bit about kind of what you've been running into at the grocery stores, right? Our game plan changed because now I don't have an RV to use a restroom in, or to wash my hands in, or to prepare food in. We're having this conversation of how much food can we fit in the cooler, if and when we stop. And this was more about my wife. If you got to use the bathroom, where do you do that? Our rest area is open.
Exactly.
Do you want to risk that? We know a lot of the restaurants are drive-through only. That's a risk in itself because people are... okay, so we go through... I'm not even going to name the chain because it doesn't matter. But we go through a drive-through because we needed food. And they're all wearing latex gloves. And I'm like, okay, but... let's just think through this for a second. If that virus can live on cardboard for between 1 and 3 days, and metal somewhere in that same time range, and I've got a credit card and I'm sick and I touch that card and I hand it to that worker. Now they've got gloves on, so they may not contract it, but the next person that hands them a credit card, those same hands with those same gloves touch that credit card. Now you've just spread by contact from one credit card to another, which I touch barehanded and put back in my wallet. It's a mess, man. It's just a real mess.
It is a mess. The fact that this stuff can stay airborne for up to, I think it's like 3 hours. Seriously, it can be in the air for around 3 hours and still be, that's a scary situation. That's why a lot of these grocery stores, and we'll get into a little bit about that here in a minute.
Oh, wait.
What?
It's time to sanitize.
Yes, it is.
Or wait, would you prefer this one? Is that a more over the overhead?
I like that one better.
Would you rather have? Okay.
Yeah. So it's exactly right. All this stuff can
wipe down your areas.
Wipe it. Yeah, I'm wiped down. Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me this morning. So, and I'll go ahead and get into that. So the experience that I had. Now, where I live in a really ground zero. I think most of you guys are aware. This area, the West Coast.
You're in northwestern Washington State.
Northwestern,
practically
Washington
Canada,
State,
just north of Seattle, right?
Yep. The first case was just to the south of us. First case reported in the U.S. was just south of us. Now, the city that I live in, they've had 2 cases in the city, and this was just as of yesterday. The county that I live in, and granted, the size of the counties in the state of Washington are humongous. Our county goes from one side of the state to the other, but it's a narrow county. But I think 38 in perspective to King County, which is just south of the Seattle area. They 700 plus. It's just amazing the amount of cases they've had there. So it's a real hot.
Now you're in a smaller community. It's a little bit of a vacation community out on an island.
And that's what I'm saying is. Densely populated areas are the ones that are really, really getting hit
when
hard.
we traveled through, we literally would go, okay, we don't want to stop in a city. Like if we got to stop for gas or bathroom or whatever, let's stop as far away from the urban centers as we can. So now I unfortunately had to go into a couple Walmarts for ice and whatever, gas, whatever. Use the restroom in one on the way back. I tried to not just touch stuff, but you went into the grocery store because you got to eat. Okay,
I go in and I'm prepared, and you got to have a cart. There's no way around it. I keep surgical gloves on. It's in my supply here anyway. I keep it.
I use them just to change an oil.
Exactly, just for a number of reasons. I have them, so I've got a couple of boxes. So I'm fortunate that I don't have to scramble around to try to find that. But if you have those things, just understand that when you put them on, okay, no matter how clean your hand is, it's what you're touching. Just be mindful of that, okay? So you can pull these things off and turn them inside out and go in the trash. That way you're never really touching what you've already touched. That's just a hint. But when I walk in, I grab my cart, and they have those nice little like
the alcohol wipes.
The alcohol wipes. Wipe down the entire part of the cart that I'm going to be touching, and then I put on my gloves, okay, and go about my business. And those gloves stay on my hands until I leave. And then once I've unloaded my groceries into my car, then I take those gloves off. When I get home, I put all the groceries up, and then once I do that, I have washed my hands 2 or 3 times, by the way, just handling stuff going into my fridge and my cupboards and stuff, and just being very mindful of all that stuff. But the one thing that I will say that these grocery stores are doing, and I hope that this is happening across the U.S. in every chain, is like every 15 minutes that I was in there, you heard everybody at your post right now, it is time to clean and sanitize. So this particular grocery store chain, the grocery store that I'm in, that I shop in, they were sanitizing every 15 minutes their workstations, okay? That's important to them specifically, but it's also important to us. Those folks are there all day long dealing with thousands of people, and I have to give them credit for being there. They are essential. These people are essential. Those cashiers, they're essential. Those meat cutters, those stockers, those shelf stockers, they are all essential to for our survival.
Yeah.
So it is our, as you know, citizens, it is our responsibility to them to help keep them healthy by wearing those gloves and using the things that they provide to us in there, and washing your hands and just being very mindful of what you're touching. I'm telling you guys, this is very serious. So,
well, and there's no, okay, so we've kind of laid out a scenario where you're going to have to go out from time to time. My wife looked at grocery delivery or even pickup, and it's a week. Like, it's a week to wait on that. Well, some people don't stock enough food that you can go a week. We were out of town, so we didn't, want to leave a bunch of food in the fridge. You got to go out. You're going to have to. Yep. You want to minimize the amount of times that you have to go out, right?
Right.
I just think that that's really the key, that minimize the amount of trips you got to take out. I mean, I know people that they're out. Some of them live in my neighborhood. They go out to dinner every night. They just don't cook. You're going to have to change that.
Well, that's a
big
part. That's a big part of my wife and I. That's our lifestyle. That's what we do. We love where we live, and we have become really good friends with a lot of the business owners of these restaurants and tap rooms and breweries.
But that's the area that you live, and I think really
that's the
what you're saying, and I think this is when you moved out there. You told me, sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name.
Yeah.
Right?
That's it. That's it.
Sorry, I couldn't.
That's it. And honestly, that it's been a big. We are so sad for our friends. I told you this. We had a very dear friend of ours who is a bartender. Keith, you've met him.
Yep.
Josh Kelly. He's also an author. He is in the process of he's got a book coming out, and we'll certainly pitch that whenever he gets a publisher. But he's been in the service industry, the food service industry, the bartending industry for a long time, and it was very sad to see a post from him stating that it's the first time that he'd ever been laid off.
Yeah.
And now he's struggling to try to find, work, and this is just one person in this industry. It has devastated that industry, and I'm afraid that we're getting to a point to where I think it's going to be mandatory that even the curbside stuff, the takeout stuff is going to be.
Just like we just laid out in the fast food line. I mean, there's really no way to not spread it, right? I mean, like
there isn't. And look, folks, man. I mean, yes, is it inconvenient? Sure, but do what I just did this morning. I sat down and I wrote a list out of what my wife and I eat during the week when we go out to eat. There's a couple of local Mexican restaurants that we love to go to, but we can't. And by the way, if you have streaming music or whatever, or satellite radio, you can find music like that to kind of brighten the mood. Give yourself a little mariachi while you're having a taco. Right? So anyway,
Sorry, man. Trying to lighten the mood.
That's not new.
You said lighten the mood.
It is.
Lighten the mood. Okay.
It is light. And I'm laughing, man. I think it's hilarious. But
Right,
so we're creating our grocery list around recreating our dinner nights, and it's fun. And you get creative with what you cook at home. Now, granted, we want to see our restaurants not suffer, our bars not suffer, but in all honesty, guys, you need to prepare yourself to be able to do these things for yourself, because some of these services may not be around for you in a week.
Well,
and
so that's a good point. So I have a little bit of a prediction here, because we love this "I told you so" game that we occasionally.
Can I hear it? Do you have that? Can you pull that up?
Do you want the long one or the short one?
I want the long one, man. Let's hear it, guys.
Okay, here it is.
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. And when did I tell you? A long time ago. And what did I say will happen when I told you? Exactly what just happened.
All right, so
see, we've been telling you guys to wash your hands.
Right. So I think this is the next "I told you so." I really do. So I've got friends and family in some of these industries that are getting overwhelmed right now. Supply chain. Walmart. Got family working at Walmart. Got some colleagues, friends, grade school friends. I had a conversation yesterday on social media with somebody that works in a Walgreens. And she was saying, this is somebody I grew up with. And she said, look, you guys, just stop calling the store. Stop calling the store. And they're overwhelmed, man. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Sure.
And I said, look, I understand your point, and I understand you're frustrated. And I understand that people that are just trying to hoard toilet paper really don't need to be calling anybody.
I'm still just baffled by that.
If you need a thermometer, right. Well, that's just part of people not, that's insanity taking over. But if you need something legitimate, if you're looking for a thermometer, that's why
we check boxes, Keith.
Right. If you need fever reducer, and I understand what they're doing. They're trying to not drive to 10 stores, risk their car breaking down, continue spreading, making additional contact that they don't need to be making. All of those things are factors sometimes in those people's minds. And so they're picking up the phone to see if you have whatever it is that they need. Now, again, if you're just buying dumb stuff like spinach salad or whatever, then you're part of the problem, okay? But my question to her was, how do you solve this? Like, I understand that you're frustrated. I understand you're overworked. I understand it's crazy. But you can't just say, don't call the store, because that is going to propagate people going out to more and more stores, and it's going to make the problem worse. So, my prediction, Jay, is that they're overwhelmed right now. In another couple weeks, a very large percentage of the workforce in the United States is going to be without work, and that means they're going to be without income. And the ridiculousness of that 17th roll of, pack of toilet paper or paper towels, or, the 15th bag of Doritos, or whatever nonsense you're trying to stock up on, they're not going to have the money to do that. So that's going to take care of itself.
Right.
And then your Walmarts and your pharmacy stores and that kind of stuff, they're gonna come back to, it's actually probably going to bounce back below baseline, because people aren't going to have the money to come in. So that's my prediction of, like, let's revisit this in a couple weeks, and I'll bet you that this whole grocery store run thing is gonna taper.